Here I'd just like to go over the basic setup of the user interface in SolidWorks. And the reason for that is oftentimes people are using SolidWorks that maybe they didn't set up themselves, or they set up when they didn't know what they were doing, and it can make it difficult to follow along with what I'm doing in the other tutorials sometimes. So I just want to try to establish a standard setup for the UI, and also give an introduction to some of the things that you can customize. So one of the first things we want to do, by default, SolidWorks starts up with these giant toolbars here with an icon and the text underneath it. To me, that just takes up way too much screen space. So in order to turn that off, you can just come up to one of these big toolbars, right-click, and this is the Command Manager toolbar right here that I'm looking at right now, and just uncheck this Use Large Buttons with Text. Then they'll become smaller, take up much less space, and you're really not losing anything, because if you forget what an icon does, you just hover over it, and a pop-up will come up telling you what it is. So that's a good idea to do. In terms of the actual selection and positioning of these toolbars, what I like to go with is the following. This toolbar here that has, by default, these features and sketch modes here, is the Command Manager, and that's one of the most important toolbars. It's kind of like a meta toolbar that incorporates other toolbars into it. And switching between features and sketches is nice because you're typically only doing one or the other, not both at the same time. So we want to make sure that we have that one active. The way you select and deselect toolbars is to go to any blank space in your toolbar, like over here, that's not going to show up. Let's see. Up here. Unfortunately, I can't show this entire menu in the screencast because I'm working at 800 by 600, which is probably significantly smaller than what you've got on your own screen. So everything's going to appear like it's not fitting very well on mine. If you right-click on these toolbars up here, you can select which ones are active and not active. So you definitely want Command Manager to be checked. The next one you want is let's talk about the Standard Toolbar is important. It's unfortunately off the bottom of my screen here on the list, but if I turn it off, you can see which one I'm talking about. So the Standard Toolbar is the one that has save and load and make assembly, etc. So it's got some important stuff up there. The next one is the Standard Views toolbar, and that's the one that I had over here. Standard Views is the one that allows you to go to the front, left, top, etc. Isometric views. I like to keep it over here on this side. Whether you do that is up to you. But to reposition any of these, you can dock them up here like this. If you want to undock them, you just move the little double bar on the left there, and you can either float it, which tends to get in the way, or take it over to one of the sides of the screen and then move it up like that. So I like for my standard views to be there. Let's see. The task pane is this little flyout thing over here. And that can be useful during assemblies, doing Photoworks and stuff. You can turn it off other times, but this is the task pane there, which is selected through that same menu. And the View toolbar is this one up here. So you can see the whole thing. I'll move it out. This is the one that gives you the manual icons for panning and zooming and rotating. There's also a drop-down standard views here, which you could use in lieu of this, and wireframe shaded with edges, etc., etc. So I like to have that one up here. Photoworks for rendering is a good one to have if you're doing any of that sort of thing. Now, if Photoworks Photoworks should be available in this menu here, as it is for me, and you can turn it on. If it is not available, you need to turn on the add-in. And the way you do that is Tools menu, Add-ins. Make sure that Photoworks is checked on both sides here. And then the add-in will be loaded, and you will be able to place that Photoworks toolbar up there. Finally is the Surfaces toolbar, which I will turn on right here. And it's really off the edge of my screen here because I'm operating in such a low resolution. Now, this one's up to you. If you're not doing any surfacing stuff, and which isn't typically until the later part of the course, you don't need that. Also, surfaces may be a good one to incorporate into the command manager. So if it's running off the edge of the screen here like it is for me, this is the surfaces toolbar with the orange icons. You may choose to actually incorporate it into the command manager instead. And the way you can do that is to come over to the command manager. And right now I've just got features and sketch toolbars here, but if I customize the command manager, I can say put the surfaces one in there as well, and now I can switch through the three of those. Okay, so that's up to you. I typically set it as another toolbar over on this side, but if you're low on screen real estate, maybe that's a good one to be in the command manager. Okay, so that covers where to put all the toolbars and how to turn them on and off. If you've got another toolbar up here that I didn't mention that you're not using, I would try to figure out which one it is in this list and turn it off. Or if you could just, for example, if I wanted to turn off the Photoworks one, you can just tear it out here and then close it, and it'll go away. Let me get Photoworks back. But you don't want, you certainly don't want any toolbars up here that you're not using or that you don't know the purpose of. They're just going to get in the way. Okay. So in some cases, we want to actually add new commands to these toolbars. I do this every now and then when there's a command that we can access, say, from the menus, but it'd be nice to have it in the toolbars. And it's actually quite easy to do that. As an example, I'll show... move my window. I'll show a couple that I added to the view toolbar here. I'm just tearing this off so that you can see the whole thing. So on this big menu that drops down with the right click, if you at the very bottom is second from the bottom is customize with ellipses, and if you do that, now we're not doing customize this menu. It's just customize ... When you do that, you'll bring up this customization dialog, and if you go over to commands here, this is a list of every potential icon on each of these toolbars. They don't automatically have all of them. So what I did over here in the view toolbar, let's see if we can fit all this, is by default, I think a couple of these, like the zebra stripes was not there by default, but zebra stripes is a good surface analysis tool that we do often use. So I dragged it. Let's see, so this is what it looked like originally, and so I went up and dragged my zebra stripes up here so that I had it available on this toolbar. Turns out I don't need real view graphics because my graphics card doesn't support it, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then the curvature analysis tool is a good one to have too, so I'm going to put that there. Now I can't remember every one that I've customized in my interface, but every now and then you may see me refer to a command that's not set up this way by default, and this is how you get it on there. You can even, I could put the zebra stripes in the Photoworks toolbar, which wouldn't make much sense, but you could do that. So that's how you access that sort of thing. Okay. Let me put this back up here. And if there's buttons on, like I never use the undo button up here, I could drag it off that way by going through customization. Okay, another thing that I want to look at, which is not specifically related to the user interface, but it's a common question, so I'll just address it now, is how do you change the units in a part? So for example, if I was working on the sketch here, and let's see, by default I'm probably I'm in millimeters now, but let's say I was doing a part in inches and I wanted to do things in inches. The way you change units is to go to your options. Now there's an options button here, or you can go to, I think it is Tools, Options. And units are set in the document properties over here. So it's set by document. And you get a Document Properties tab, Units, and you can switch between IPS, inch, pound, and second, and MMGS, and that'll change the units for that document. So if I go to IPS here and click OK, and go back to that sketch, now it's showing 0.73 inches. Okay, so that's how you change units in a document. And finally, another customization option. This one is in the system options. Colors here is how you can choose whether you've got a plain background, a gradient background. Sometimes you want plain white, so I could go plain and then say I want this to be pure white. Click OK there. Sometimes people want to make changes like that. Pure white can be useful if you're doing screen captures to print out and draw over or whatever. So that's options, system options, colors. And I usually just use the, not the brushed metal, but the metal sheet theme here. But you can make your choice there. So that hopefully that'll help us get our user interfaces somewhat aligned, and you'll be able to find things and get them set up the way you like.